Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Jason Alonso, Pose next to last episode of season 1. The penultimate, thank you. Pink slip.
Yeah.
I sense a disturbance in the force. You were not into this one.
No, the force was not strong with me today, Alonso. No, I mean, whatever, it was fine. I want to start by saying that we talk about the music choices on this show. I feel like all the music choices on this show are Ryan Murphy's like teen angst playlist from 1987, 86, because it's all, he had the Jets, you know, Make It Real.
Right.
Janet, Let's Wait a While. Yeah, so that's there. As far as the storyline, okay. Papi, we finally get some deets on Papi, some tea on Papi,
right? And
not Papi, you know, the Latin Papi of the house, and it was a pretty intense scene for me, I guess, because you know you have Mother or Blanca making a choice to kick him out.
Yeah,
and that's gotta be tough because they're all cut from the same cloth, Alonso. They're all cut from being abandoned, being thrown to the wolves, you know, having to fend for yourself. So she is so steadfast in her rules that listen, you don't compromise the safety of the house. And if you do, you're out. It's a wrap.
Right, and it's a hard choice either way. Either if she had taken the easy way and been like, oh well, no, this is the last time, then that undercuts her authority. It undercuts the authority of the rules that she very clearly laid down to everybody as they moved in. But on the other hand, having to be strict and kicking him out is like also gut-wrenching because she doesn't want to be just another person who's kicking him to the curb, you know. Yeah. And so I thought that was an interesting thing about this episode, and I thought there was kind of an interesting through line about what people expect from each other versus what they get from each other. So you see that with Elektra and her sugar daddy. You see that with Angel and Stan.
Yeah.
I never forget the white people's names on this show.
Stan and the wife.
Angel and Stan and the wife. Yeah, and so it's all this sort of thing of like, who can you rely on? Who's going to let you down?
Right.
And so I thought, and frankly, Elektra and her children, but also her children and Elektra. You know,
right. Elektra's just getting. So I really was invested in Elektra's storyline for the last 2 episodes because you know she has the full surgery. She's now, as she says, I am a woman, and she. You have a sense of there's an endearing quality about Elektra now that when she's not having over the top grand gestures of bad acting, I'm here for. What I didn't like though, and what I really was shocked to see, I shouldn't say didn't like, was when she returns to the hotel and the butler is kind of violent with her. And
I totally bought that because here's the thing, while she was under Chris Maloney's protection, or
right.
It's
Chris Maloney, yes.
Well, she's under Chris Maloney's protection. Yeah, he's got to be nice to her, even if he's thinking the whole time, she is, you know.
Right.
But now that clearly that arrangement is over and he's probably been given instructions by Maloney not to let her up, let this other gal up, then yeah, that guy now has license to be the prick that he probably always wanted to be to her. So I thought that was a very powerful scene and a very believable scene.
Sure. Do you think that they were? Some people online as well were saying that this show is kind of perpetuating and fetishizing transgendered people because when she's on the date with the new Chris Maloney, all the requests that he has for her and then all the requests that she has for him, and then finally when she tells him, hey, I am a full-fledged woman, and I don't, what would be the right way to, in the context of the show, refer to her now?
Well, I mean, she's a trans woman, but she's I guess, post-operative, if we're still using that term?
Right.
I don't know, don't come at me.
Right, exactly, that's why I wanted to ask. But just the whole, oh, well, you should have led with that.
But you know, I think the show is making a point that for a lot of these rich guys who have relationshiip like this, that is a key part of the arrangement. The pre-op, if you will, is what they're interested in. That's what they're fetishizing. And once that's taken away, once she becomes just like any other woman, they're no longer interested. And the show's not saying that's a good thing. The show's saying that's the thing that exists. I mean, in Almodovar's All About My Mother, there's a trans character who talks about having gotten her breast, but absolutely never getting rid of her penis because that is her, like, that's the
selling point.
That's the selling point, basically, yeah. And so I'm remembering in Paris is Burning where one of the mothers talks about how these kids think they're going to get their surgery and that their life's going to be great, but women get hassled, women get dogged, women get murdered. Being a woman is no piece of cake, you know. And so I think that for Elektra there was this thought of like, I'm a real woman now, but it's like, guess what? You're a real woman in America in 1986, and that can often suck.
You're true.
And that if you are, and that unfortunately the people who want to be in relationships with you have an agenda in mind that has nothing to do with what you want or how you think of yourself. It's the thing that they're interested in. So I think the show is portraying an uncomfortable truth, but I don't think that's the same as fetishizing or supporting it anyway. I think that she's saying that for a lot of these rich dudes who have this as their mistress, they want their mistress a very specific way.
Right, and I agree with you. I still think there's a level of fetishization there and a dehumanization of those people and those characters, and also of Elektra, because she's been abandoned again by her children. Her children are like, you know what, we can, Lulu and Candy, yes, wants to start their own house because it seems like, is it me or does it seem like anyone can start a house now? What house do we want to be?
Apparently, yeah. If you could put down like first last deposit on an apartment,
right.
You can start.
And
you
got a 640 credit score. You can have your own.
Well, again, this is New York in the late '80s. It was pre-Giuliani. I think the rents were a little less crazy. But at the same time, it's like the show has been setting us up for this because the show is set up that Elektra has been not the kindest mother, very selfish, and Candy quite rightly calls her out. You spent the rent on your surgery. You spent our Christmas money on your surgery.
The Christmas money.
And now we're being evicted. Bye.
Because you were selfish. You were a selfish mother. Beep.
Yeah, well, which as you contrast to Papi. Papi broke the rules. Papi did the thing that he was specifically told not to do. And yes, there are reasons to explain why he did it and his motivations and all that stuff. But at least Blanca is consistent, and Blanca is creating a safe home for her children.
And that's admirable.
Yeah.
That's the fight in the living room too with Ricky. Did you get, and you guys watching at home, did you? Ricky, I kind of got an alternative agenda from Ricky. Like he showed a really ugly side of himself that kind of was very selfish and very self-serving. Like, listen, I sold you out because I did what I had to do. It wasn't. Or do you think that he was just that he?
I think he, like Blanca, is caught in a quandary. Either he lies and jeopardizes his own position in this house, and this house is important to him because he's been kicked out of his other ones, and this is a stable home with a roof and people who love him and all that stuff, and that is not something you want to jeopardize. Or you tell the truth and then you're a snitch and you've betrayed your friend and
Right.
So again, I think that what I admire about this show is that it's not kind of setting up these very easy like good guy, bad guy, and like kind of fake moral quandaries that you can solve in 2 seconds. These are genuinely tricky issues, and whatever somebody picks is gonna be right in some ways and wrong in some ways.
True. Stan and Angel. He finally delves, which I thought he would have been a part of that world because they're now officially a couple.
Yeah.
The wife says, "Listen, you're a great dad. You're a crappy husband." So of course he's back in the arms of Angel. He finally dives into her world.
Yeah.
And did you get? And you guys watching? Did you guys get that? He was uncomfortable. I got he was a little uncomfortable at the ball.
I think he was super uncomfortable, and part of it is for I'm sure everybody at the ball is like, who is this guy? What is this guy doing here? Right. But at the same time, I think he now has to sort of face on a larger scale what he's getting into because, and this is a thing, this isn't even a trans thing, this is a relationship thing. Two people can get together and they can be in a bubble of their own making and it's all great and it's all lovely. But then when you start meeting the friends and you start meeting the family.
It's very public.
It becomes public and you start getting to know that person and how that person exists in the world, that can be different than what's going on in the bubble,
Right, I ship them. I think that I do because we all thought that Stan was gonna be this like Jeffrey Dahmer serial killer that had a thing for transgender women. Right. He was trying to take them all out. But we're seeing this endearing, this very loving, and this very accommodating and very doting relationship between the two. And I also like that she's opening up more. And we're seeing that she's in her life, she's seeing some kind of consistency with someone who shows a valid interest in her as a person. Not as what people have deemed her as a freak of nature or a freak in general.
Well, and I think what you see here is this, we could go deep here and talk about how this show is a critique of capitalism, because you have these white guys who have the money and the position, and they ultimately get to make these decisions about how things go, and they can walk away at a moment's notice if things aren't exactly their way. Whereas you have these women who are either sex workers or former sex workers, because that's all that society is letting them do.
Right.
And they are struggling to get ahead. They're working twice as hard for half as much, and they are subject to the whims of these guys who say they want to take care of them, but then will just like cancel the contract for whatever reason that they come up with. So, I mean, I don't think any, by all means, the way that Maloney's character and Stan behave are reprehensible, but the show is in no way defending them at all. The show is like, this is what you have to deal with. This is who has the power here, and they often abuse it.
Right. Yeah. The ball. Do you think that the ball scenes? Because I love the ball scenes. I wish the ball scenes were a little bit more like they would do a whole episode just on maybe like a Vogue off, it's like just a whole versus, because I think that when they go back and forth between the ball, either you have a scenario with the characters inside the ball, or they're just showcasing what happens at the ball. And it's like, pick, either give us that juicy zhuzh of magic of what happens at the ball, the performances, like just a whole sequence of that, or don't.
I think that we're looking at an 8-episode season. And so I think there's probably a lot of compression going on, and a lot of like, okay, we have to have a ball sequence in this episode, and we'll somehow tie it into the plot or not as it goes. I think that now that's been picked up, if they get 12 or 13, they can breathe a little, they can spend some time sort of on that world, which would be nice. I agree with you. It's fun to watch, it's cool to see. I think they've found ways to work it in well, whether it was like the body episode where Candy's dealing with, trying to get, a bigger butt and all that stuff, or in this episode where, of course, the one that Stan comes to, it's not high fashion, it's not, executive realness, it's bizarre.
Right, club kid, yeah.
So he's just like, it's Lee Bowery night, I can't deal with this, So I think they're making an effort to try and incorporate it into the larger narrative. But you're right. I think once they have more primetime real estate, they'll be able to play with that a little more and do more stuff with it. Do we think that Private Dancer is a great choice or a super obvious choice?
Okay, so I think that song takes me back to when I was 4. And my dad and my mom played the hell out of that. That was like Tina Turner's big solo album, post Ike. They were huge, right?
So giant comeback album.
What's Love Got to Do with It? You heard Private Dancer everywhere.
I only laughed because you were 4 and I was in college.
So I remember my parents, they had a cassette tape, my mom bought it on vinyl.
Okay.
And sure, fine. I mean, there's so many great 80s songs that are just so like on the money that they could have used, but I thought it was okay.
It just, no shade on the song. The song is a classic and it's great, but it's just so, this is the thing we're doing, and this is the song of the thing we are doing, and it's like, it's a very like, we get it, But on the other hand, it's like, not doing it would almost seem like, oh, well, they should have played Private Dancer here.
Right.
So I don't know. Again, it's a quandary that there's no good choice either way.
But I think the music, Alonso, I love the music because I'm said, especially like the Madonna 80s art. I think 80s music, that genre of music, or that era of music for me, because I was so young, but yet when I listen to it now, was so good because there was still growth and creativity. And why you laugh at me?
You're explaining the 80s to me, and I'm older than you.
No. Well, my 80s experience. Bart's looking at me in the booth like, Jason, stop. You know nothing.
Look, the 80s were my decade. That was my, I was 13 in 1980, so like that was totally my coming of age decade. So yes, I love all that song, all that music too. But again, and I think, my husband is right about this. The Balls certainly would have had a lot more underground house music club hits than we get on this show, and they would not be playing Sugar Walls.
Yeah,
they did play Is It All Over My Face? They played some other kind of like Frankie Knuckles era stuff, but like if we're gonna talk about coming correct on the 80s, I think there's a There are other ways they could go, but obviously they totally play, Sheena Easton and the Jets over the New Jersey scenes, absolutely, because that's what was playing there.
I would love a ball scene to have like, I don't know, like Run DMC or maybe some Roxanne Shante.
I don't know that they were
just like bad cat, salt and pepper.
Yeah, I mean, I get
push it real good.
There you go. Well, was that 90s though?
No, that was like 88.
Was it? Okay,
yeah.
okay. Well, the show's 86, so we're not there yet. So calm your tits.
Can we say that here at TYT? Can we say that? Alonso, have you ever been to a ball before?
No, never. Have you?
No.
I have not. But I was fortunate enough that this week at Outfest, I was on a panel with Twiggy Pucci Garcon, who is one of the creators of the film Kiki, which is about the sort of, it's kind of it's like Paris is Burning, but now, more sort of contemporary look at the ball scene. And he actually is a consultant on Pose, talking about he's kind of overseeing the ball, or I think he's a consultant on specifically on the ball sequences to make sure that they're getting it right.
Getting it right. I think that's something to really celebrate, because like a lot of these shows that want to venture into what a niche subject like the ball scene, and they could either do it. They can do their research half-heartedly, or they can go all in. I think that's what makes this show great, is because behind the scenes, there's so much great representation.
Yeah.
So many authentic people who lived it, who were there, that have such a myopic view of what happened in that time, to give people who don't have a myopic view or have no clue, like myself, because I barely saw Paris is Burning about 2 or 3 years ago. After RuPaul was like, dude, if you ever want to come back on this show, do your homework. And so I was like, absolutely. So I think that's what's great about Pose, and the season 2 has been confirmed.
And in season 2, Jenny Livingston, who directed Paris is Burning, is directing an episode.
And she's also been producer.
Yes, although from what I read in one, I don't know if it was the New Yorker piece about Ryan Murphy, it was like she was kind of involved and then not involved, but obviously whatever deal she set up was like, well, if there's a season 2, I'm directing the episode, and there she is. So I'm psyched about that. But Janet Mock, Our Lady J, Silas Howard, Stephen Canals, obviously, these are people who know what they're doing. This episode was directed by Tina Mabry, who is an extraordinary. If you get a chance to see Mississippi Damned, she's an amazing filmmaker. So yeah, one more pose to go. Who will be Mother of the Year? Who?
My vote is for Lulu. Just kidding. Bring it, bitch.
I vote for whoever was the wound up having the mummified corpse in the trunk at the foot of her bed.
True, I vote for whoever makes the best breakfast, because that apartment looks great and the food on the show always looks fantastic.
Breakfast is essential on the show. It is the most important meal of the day. All right, we'll be back next week to talk about the season finale. Join us then, thanks.